TikTok is calling on the Supreme Court to stop a law that would ban the social media app across the U.S. starting next month. TikTok and its Chinese parent company ByteDance filed for an emergency review to speed up the process. Earlier this year, President Biden signed a law that required the company to sell the app to a non-Chinese entity, and this came after the U.S. intelligence agencies warned lawmakers about potential national security risks. Danny Karon is an antitrust attorney and law professor.
TikTok is doing its best to get the D.C. Circuit's decision to the U.S. Supreme Court, hoping that the Supremes will reverse the unanimous ruling that occurred at the appellate court. Because if the court doesn't, or if the court refuses to take the case, which is effectively ruling against TikTok, TikTok's out of business in the U.S. come January 19th.
And he explains exactly what TikTok and ByteDance are asking.
TikTok is requesting expedited review. Usually the Supreme Court takes its own sweet time, but in certain instances, they'll speed up the process. That happened a lot when Trump's cases were moving through the court because there was some national urgency ascribed to those concerns, to those cases. Whether the court thinks the same here or thinks it's just, hey, it's another First Amendment case involving social media, been there, done that, it may or may not bump up the schedule.
He breaks down what's going to happen if the Supreme Court agrees to hear this on an expedited review.
That means it's going to resolve it quickly. Will the resolution come before January 19th? Most likely, because that's the point of expediting the review. And what it's going to say, the court that is anybody's guess. If the court declines the request for expedited review, that means that the court could take the case eventually, but it will probably take the case after January 19th has come and gone, which begs the question, what the heck does TikTok do on the 19th? Well, with the D.C. Circuit not having stayed the case, or the Supreme Court not staying the case pending the Supreme Court's acceptance or not, they've got to follow the decree as handed out by the D.C. Circuit, which is that they're out of business.
And he says one of TikTok's arguments against the ban would be a First Amendment violation of the free speech rights of its 170 million American users.
TikTok doesn't have standing to raise a First Amendment argument for its users. If I wanted to make a claim, maybe I could, that my First Amendment right is quelled through government action. But I don't see how TikTok has that right. Now, might they have First Amendment right to put this content out there? Sure. But does it translate or flow over onto me? And do they have standing, like I said, to make my claim or 170 million users' claims? I don't think so. And easily that argument didn't prevail either because their First Amendment arguments crashed and burned at the district and appellate court levels.
He says it's tough to know how this case is going to play out, but thinks the Supreme Court will make a decision before the deadline on January 19th, and they're going to let TikTok stick around in the U.S. in some form or fashion.